So I told you that we would be hearing again from two people who are part of our community. Bradley Tarr is the next one. Bradley is well known to the court, as we say, not for anything bad. He's from Richland County, Ohio, and was one of the first graduates from the AOT program in Richland County. But he is way more than that. He is a great talker, a philosopher. He is fun to know. He has great stories about his own journey, and he's going to be with us today to talk about and moderate the AOT Graduate panel. But you have to come up here, Bradley. Let's see if I know how to do this. Or do you want to hold it?
You can just put it there.
I don't know how to do it. Listen, I'm old. I'm one of those old people who, I would love to sleep 16 hours a day, by the way, Daniel. I'd like to get more than 7 hours.
I've already come to the decision that if anything goes wrong with the panel, I am blaming Judge Rusu. If I don't tease judges, I starve. I'm Catholic. I blame other people for my problems. But so my job is to introduce a powerful video where we'll hear from our 4 remarkable AOT graduates who share their incredible stories of resilience, growth, and transformation. In this candid conversation with myself, a Richland County, Ohio AOT graduate, 4 people open up about the challenges they've faced, the hope they've found, and their journey to greater stability and well-being through assisted outpatient treatment. Their stories are a testament to strength, perseverance, and the life-changing impact of AOT. Stay tuned after for an engaging discussion, and don't miss the opportunity to ask questions and to interact with our featured graduates after the video. Our message today is simple yet profound. Assisted outpatient treatment can offer a light at the end of a long, dark tunnel when given an opportunity to work in an individual's life when it is cooperated with. Please enjoy the video, and I'll be back up here after the video. We have 4 AOT graduates with us today, and we wanted to ask them some questions about their experiences before, during, and after being in the assisted outpatient treatment program. We're going to start with the first question. Caleb, please discuss your diagnoses and life before AOT, and what was it like before entering the AOT program?
Yeah, so I have bipolar disorder, bipolar 1. Before AOT, I was probably in and out of hospitals every year, once a year. I have a hospitalization, it's like a manic episode. Let's see, so before I started the program, I had probably a handful of hospitalizations. I was kind of taking my medication, and then it got to a point when I got really sick. I developed lymphoma cancer. I stopped taking medication altogether, and I had some breakdowns. And so that's what led me to state psychiatric facility. And after that, I started taking medication and doing AOT.
Like Caleb, I also was diagnosed with bipolar 1 disorder. One of the reasons that I had a psychotic episode was because I was misdiagnosed as depressed, and therefore I was prescribed the wrong medication. And so that was a big turning point for me, was realizing that medication management is a huge part of recovery. So AOT was essential in that area, in giving me access to providers who were keeping me accountable with taking my medication, checking in on what was going on in my life, and making sure that I was on the right path to recovery.
I was diagnosed with bipolar 1 at the age of 16, and before AOT, I was in and out of the hospital a lot, and since AOT, I haven't been in the hospital for being off my medication at all. Judge Burke was a really great influence in my life. She held me accountable, and having to report to her once a month made me more be like on my P's and Q's.
I actually started having interaction with the mental health center here in Winfield, Kansas, when I was 19. So I've been bounced around, and I really misdiagnosed. I was depressed, I was this, I was that, and it was only until we realized, wait a minute, I'm showing signs of schizophrenia, that I was able to acknowledge that, yeah, that is what's going on. I mean, it's a big deal and a big diagnosis to take on, but because it's serious, it's very serious. It can, if you're symptomatic, it can lead, to your danger. You can become a danger to yourself, a danger to others. And so I was really glad that I feel like I have a decent diagnosis. My technical diagnosis is schizophrenia. I'm sorry, schizoaffective disorder and bipolar disorder mania.
Gotcha. I actually share that exact same diagnosis with you. Schizoaffective with manic psychotic symptoms.
On the subject of mental health in general, I was very ignorant. I came from a relatively conservative family where issues like that were not discussed, and certainly not discussed outside of the immediate family. So although I feel that I was symptomatic from a young age, I was not actually able to seek treatment until my early 20s. And so unfortunately, I kind of lost that battle against time, where my symptoms had become so severe that I was forced to enter the psychiatric unit. I think during my time in the psychiatric unit, it was a very difficult and eye-opening experience. But looking back, I'm very grateful for people that do a lot of the thankless work to help people recover, that understand and empathize with people who are going through severe mental health issues, and that realize that recovery is possible as long as you continue to work on it.
Absolutely. Yeah, with me too. Big experiences throughout my life. There are certain sectors of my family as well where they think, oh, you just need more self-control, you need more self-discipline, you need to get your stuff together. So I definitely can understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, I didn't take it as seriously until I got into AOT. I kind of tried to pretend like I was like everybody else, and just kind of go about my life in a normal way. When I got to AOT, I really had to come to terms with my illness and with my life in terms of, getting back on track and accepting the fact that I had bipolar disorder and that I needed treatment and medication regardless of the side effects of it. So it definitely changed.
My perception of mental health was when I was going in and out of the hospitals, I didn't trust the people. I didn't trust the doctors, the nurses, the therapists. I didn't trust anybody. I thought basically that they were out to get us, and that they just treated mentally ill people different than, normal people. When I entered the AOT program, like I was saying last time, when they were talking about it, when I was in the hospital and I was off my meds, I was experiencing psychosis. And I thought that AOT and the ACT program was actually an acting program. And I thought that I was trying to interview for this program. So it didn't even come to reality until I came back to my right state of mind and I was entered into the AOT program. And when I got entered into the AOT program, it helped me to realize that I need my medication. I had stopped taking my medication again, and I was really sick. I was in a manic state. And my dad and I had a conflict, and I stole his car. And he had a lot of weed in his car. And so I smoked all the weed. And I guess I fell asleep. And when I woke up, I had totaled my dad's car. I had ran into a pole and totaled my dad's car. And they took me to the hospital. And then they were like, when you get out of here, you're going to jail. And I was like, no, I'm not. They were like, yes, you are. So my dad had reported his car stolen. So once I got released from the hospital, I had to go to Central State. No, first I went to jail. And when I was in jail, I was very psychotic. And my mom got in contact with this police officer that I do the crisis intervention training with. And her, along with Judge Burke, they got me released from jail and sent to Central State because they knew that I was psychotic. And when I went to Central State, I was in there and I was really, really out of reality. I was thinking like so much crazy stuff, and I thought it was to be real, but it wasn't. So when they got my medicine right and they released me, I was court ordered to do the AOT program.
Essentially, what happened was my mania progressed to the point of psychosis. Over about a 6-month span, my life sort of started to unravel. I maxed out all of my credit cards. I started distancing myself from my parents, and I was just engaging in very risky behavior in general. And essentially, I ran out of places to go. I didn't have any gas in my car, and the police could recognize that I was very distressed. So rather than arresting me, they were gracious enough to bring me to a psychiatric ward, and then I was hospitalized 3 times within a 4-month span, and that is the threshold in New Jersey for being put on a civil commitment order. And the rest is kind of history. I was on that order for about 12 months, and it took me about 18 months total to go through all of this, including outpatient treatment.
When I got lymphoma cancer, I was on chemotherapy and I got off medication and I had basically a manic episode. I went on a run the day after my chemotherapy. I went on a run in the morning and I was kind of like running in the street and knocking on people's doors. And so someone called the police and I was basically taken to Ospon State Hospital, and I was very combative, whatnot, not myself.
I believe that it was integral because part of when in the past when I would get out of the hospital, I'd be okay for a month or 2, and then I would start back up with the I don't need the meds, I don't need treatment. But the AOT, I actually ended up really enjoying the process, and then I realized that my team just got bigger. And so, like I was talking about earlier, I had always felt adversarially towards the mental health system. This time, by this point, I actually, if I was thinking, I would feel like I disappointed my AOT team because they were so they're so there for me, and it's just nice. It's really nice.
AOT made me realize that I was different, but I was normal, and that as long as I would take my medication and not do drugs, that I could be a productive citizen in society. Like I was saying, a lot of times before AOT, I would quit taking my medication and I would get really sick. But since AOT, I have not been off my medication. In February, it'll be 2 years since I've been off my medication. And to me, that is a milestone. I always had periods of times when I wanted to come off my medication, but I am out of denial now, and I know that if I don't take my medication, I'm going 2 places, jail and the hospital. Every single time that I've come off my medication, I've ended up not in just one, but both, jail and the hospital. And that's just the revolving door. Like, if I don't take my medicine, I know I'm going to jail and the hospital. And the goal that I have for my life right now is to never have to be admitted or to get arrested again.
That's a great goal. I mean, that's an admirable goal, and good for you. I also wanted to say you touched upon what has become one of the big mottos and slogans for AOT programs, that we're trying to stop the revolving door of hospitalizations and incarcerations and bring people the real help that they desperately need.
I think that the most important impact it had was adding structure back to my life. As I had mentioned previously, over a 6-month span, I really deteriorated in pretty much every aspect of life, professional, social, financially. So it was a very tough time for me. And AOT providing, a social worker and a psychiatrist and, the court mandate, that was really essential in giving me a path to a recovery that, I was not able to see myself at that moment. And then the second thing I would add is that the communication with my family and my parents and explaining to them the process of what I was going through and, the fact that my mental illness was responsible for a lot of these actions really helped to smooth things over and kind of give them some faith that I would make a recovery and be able to return to my previous life.
What about certain AOT team members, your case manager, the AOT monitor, the judge? How did they specifically help you?
I guess the biggest thing was just my case manager, my judge, and I guess the people that are handling on medication. They were all willing to listen to what I was going through and help me out that way.
So I had several case managers throughout my AOT experience. I can say unequivocally that each one came with the same attitude, which was, something that I resented at the time, but now I understood was necessary, was this almost forceful positivity where they wouldn't allow me to fall into negative thoughts. They continued to tell me that it was going to be okay. And even though I truly did not feel like that in the moment, they were persistent in that effort. And as Caleb had mentioned as well, it was a reason for me to get out of the house. I would often go to coffee shops with them, and just getting those few minutes outside, speaking with somebody outside of my immediate family was refreshing and also just instrumental in part of the recovery of getting back to a normal life outside of the hospital.
Judge Burke was really holding me accountable, and she really showed me that she really cared about my situation and that this wasn't just something that was court ordered. She made me feel like she personally felt deep care about me. She even came to my house on Christmas and brought me a Christmas gift. And like that really blew me out of the water, because I didn't think that a judge could be so nice, because every judge that I've encountered in the past, they seem like they just wanted to throw the book at you.
I felt special. I felt like, that they were really listening to me and helping me problem solve. And like, I didn't really have the urge or the desire to cause any problems, but I knew that the possibility of falling back under my schizophrenia was real and it was there. If I were to, reoffend or, which is a bad choice of words, but I really feel like I let my team down, because they've really been there for me, and they coordinate like the attendant care worker, writes a little note on how I do, and so it's kind of, you walk in, it's like, how did you know that about me? We talk, we know what's going on. So, and yeah, it was just absolutely wonderful.
So I felt that my AOT experience was very comprehensive. From the health standpoint, I had a psychiatrist who was willing to be stern with me and make sure that I had a slow progression of getting used to medications and finding the right ones. From a social and family aspect, as I mentioned before, my case managers were very instrumental in communicating with my family and also getting me back onto the path of life. And then in addition to that, I was actually awarded a full scholarship through one of the ancillary programs of AOT to study computer science. So it was really a rebirth for me in every aspect of my life.
I like that I stayed stable enough on my medication and that I didn't get into any legal trouble. And I was just really proud of myself that I made it through that year without any relapses. And when I graduated the program and we took that picture in the court, and it wasn't a mugshot, that was really a big milestone. To graduate AOT was like the best part of AOT to me.
One of the things that I really appreciated was I felt like they were interested in me and getting to know me, because I had been in and out of the system so much that, and all they would see was me when I'm symptomatic or causing problems or having a disorderly conduct charge or something like that, and they made me feel like like they had the chance to get to know me, and I was able to show them what I'm like when I'm not symptomatic, And I think I told him, my sense of humor is a little bit off, but I was able to share little things with him, big things. If I had concerns, I never felt like I don't have a place to turn to with this problem or that problem. And I stayed out of jail and on my meds for what is that, 3 years? Yeah, 3 years.
I might have had a breakdown, had to go out, was hospitalized while I was undergoing AOT, and so they had to redo the docket. But I think they were all forgiving. They were able to help me, and I felt in a better position as I moved forward.
So I think that the primary challenge for me was just my resistance and the remaining paranoia that I felt towards the situation. As I think Dawn had mentioned, I originally felt persecuted and that I hadn't done anything wrong and that I was being punished for some reason, which in reality was just people looking out for my well-being. And so again, my case managers and my psychiatrist and everybody that was involved in the program just kept showing up and making sure that I was taking one step at a time. And it's a gradual process. Recovery doesn't happen in a week. And having somebody that has guided other people through that also be able to help you is pretty instrumental in making that transition.
The only problems that I have were like I'm without transportation, and so and for whatever reason, my memory is very very poor, and like if I schedule something, I forget about it. So they not only took responsibility for helping me, but they arranged for me to be able to get that help. And that meant transportation and a chance to talk to my case manager about everything. I just felt really plugged in. For the first time, I felt like I had some say over what happened to me mentally.
Caleb, did you feel coerced or forced to accept treatment while in AOT?
I did initially. I felt forced to go, and it was like I felt like I was being punished. But as I familiarized myself with the case manager workers and the judge, it didn't feel like a punishment at all. They were just looking out for me. So initially, yes, but later, no.
I felt like I was forced into the program, but I wasn't forced to interact with anybody. Being an adult and knowing my situation, I knew that I would have to do that. You're supposed to have therapy when you have a diagnosis like I have, and therapy is always a good thing to have. And then I know I had to have a psychiatrist because I know I needed my medication, and I know that I had to have that treatment. So as far as the program, I feel like I was forced because I was court ordered. But with the psychiatry and the therapy, I felt like it was very much needed.
The one thing that I felt could have been improved slightly was just the communication of the legal requirements. As I had mentioned before, when I left the hospital, I really wasn't in my right state of mind. And one of the phrases that they used to describe me was labeling me as a threat to society. And that was something that I found very troubling and was very traumatic for me in a lot of ways. And I think that when you use terminology like that, that's not always the best way to describe the situation. In reality, AOT is meant to rehabilitate people, and it is not, to villainize or dehumanize people based on their mental illness. So that reality could have been softened a bit, in my opinion. I would say that there's 100% been a significant change in the way that I relate to my family and friends. I have become very open in speaking about my mental illness and my experiences with it. I've been able to write a book, and I've spoken for NAMI and at several universities, and I truly feel that I've been able to accept my genuine self and come to the realization that bipolar will always be part of my life, but it will not be all of it. And so that was a realization that took many years, and again, I'm thankful to have had a program that was able to sort of find me in one of the darkest points of my life and push me onward.
Yes, I'm a graduate student at the University of Kansas. I teach mathematics there. My relationship with friends and family is a lot closer, and people are really caring for me. They're really patient and kind. And work wise, I'm taking one step at a time, just trying to be better than I was the next day or the previous day. I enjoy what I do, and I enjoy making a difference in people's lives and my students' lives. I'm very happy to have friends and family that really support me.
The most impactful to my recovery was the reassurance that just because I have a mental illness, that I can be productive as a person. And just because I have a mental illness, I don't have to be a statistic, and I don't have to, be off my meds and be homeless and be in the streets and go in and out of jail and in and out of the hospital and things of that sort. And the major impact that AOC had on me was they influenced me to know that you have this disease and it's not going anywhere and you have to take this medication.
Actually, I have two main goals, and that's one is staying out of the state hospital, and two is to stay out of jail. And so I feel like if I can maintain those, which I surprisingly have it's almost 4 years, gone 4 years for me, and then I'll have somewhere to go, somewhere to look at, because I don't want to go back to where I came from.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that one of my primary goals is to continue to speak out about mental illness. I've seen the impact that just being honest about these things has had on other people. And I think especially with coming generations where the incidence of mental illness has increased due to a lot of external factors going on in the world, it will be more important than ever for people to be not only educated, but also aware of the resources that exist to treat it.
I have a few goals for the future. This right here was an opportunity for me to be able to share my story, but this is not where I wanted to end. My main goal is this. In 2015, I was in jail, and they sent somebody, I don't know who it was, but they sent them to talk to me, and they decided that I needed a guardian. And so I am a ward of the state at the age of 43. And the goal that I have for myself is to make sure I stay on the straight and narrow. And when I'm able to present myself again to the judge, I want to be able to prove to this lady or this man that I am capable, very much capable, to control my own life and be over myself and be my own guardian again.
I would say that you really have to trust the process, and although it may be scary at first, you really have to believe that the people in the program are there to support you. They are not there to, keep tabs on you and act like parents and reprimand you. They're really there in your own best interest, and everything heals over time. So just give it the time it deserves, and you will eventually find yourself in a better place.
I would tell them, don't feel like it's a punishment, because it's really not a punishment. It's just basically having accountability partners. These people in the program, they want to see you do good. They want to see you stay at the hospital. They want to see you stay out of jail. They want you to stay on your medication so that you can be, like I've said plenty of times, a productive citizen in society.
Michael, if you were to summarize your entire experience with untreated severe mental illness in one word, what would it be?
Misunderstood.
When I was asked this question a couple of years ago at the 2022 Symposium, I responded with that exact same word.
So, phenomenal video. I had so much fun making that video. We now wanted to open up to engage with the audience. If you have any questions for our AOT panelists, I think the plan was to have 2 mics on the floor. I don't know whether that's still the plan, but so if you want to raise your hand and maybe tell us your first name and where you're from, stuff like that. Let us know who we're talking to. Okay.
Tell a joke.
Where's Daniel?
Subliminal messaging. Pope. No. There's a couple different stories. Are you talking about the one where I thought I had a different name because it was part of my delusion? You haven't heard that one? Oh, well, that's great. So one time I just woke up in the middle of the night at about 1:30 a.m. and I found myself just upon waking up in the midst of a severe, manic delusion, basically. And I was convinced that it was my bounden duty that I was being called. I'm very, very Catholic. At the time, I was very, very just kind of like evangelical-ish. I hadn't become Catholic yet, but I've been very devout in some Christian form or denomination or another ever since I was about 11 years old. And so I woke up with this manic delusion that I had a mission directly from God himself, that I had to walk all the way from the Belleville, Mansfield, Ohio area to Cleveland because I had to meet with a evangelist, worldwide, world-renowned evangelist Billy Graham. Now, Billy Graham was still with us at this time, so it wasn't, that part of it wasn't the delusion. He was still alive at this time. But to be honest, nowadays I would never want to meet Franklin Graham, but that's a whole other story. But Franklin Graham's his son. But yeah, so I end up, the State Highway Patrol, because semi-truck drivers told the State Highway Patrol, there's a man walking on I-71 and Interstate 71 going north. And so by the time they caught up with me on the highway, it was probably about 5:30, 5:40 in the morning, and they found me about 20 miles north of Mansfield on my way to Cleveland. And they had to, and they actually weren't allowed to take me to the hospital. They didn't have the authority to pink slip me, so they had to take me back to my mom, and she was nonplussed.
Hi, I'm Janet Hayes. I'm the program director for the Orleans Assistive Outpatient Treatment Court program. Thank you all so much for sharing your experiences and being the great advocates that you are. You're playing such a vital role and underplayed role, so I want to thank you all. My question is, when you were first placed under judgments, was ACT a sort of community treatment, the modality of services you were provided? And when you graduated, were you able to keep your ACT, or did you even still think you needed ACT services? So just, if you need more clarification on that, I'm happy to clarify.
Yeah. Hey, Caleb, do you want to field that question?
Yeah, can you repeat it again? I didn't quite hear you the first time.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Great. Yeah, you have to hear me through the mic. So were you, when you were first placed under an AOT judgment, the services that were provided to you, were those assertive community treatment services, that 10-member team that provide the wraparound, they come to the house, they provide transportation, social services, there's a prescriber, vocational services, the full meal deal treatment? Or did you have some other provider?
So I had my provider, I was seeing, my provider was through Johnson County Mental Health, and I had a case manager through Johnson County Mental Health as well. So they picked me up from my house and transported me to my appointments that I needed to go to. So whether it was an injection I had to get through Johnson County, or a therapy appointment, or an appointment with a psychiatrist. So generally it was kind of a closed system, if that makes sense.
Recording in progress.
And when you graduated, did you feel did you still get the same level of service that you were getting when you started? or were you able to kind of taper down your appointments and services?
I tapered down. I think I was seeing a psychiatrist once a month at the time. And then after my service was completed, or after my AOT was done, I decreased it to about every 3 months. And then I think as far as case management, I was still doing case management even after my AOT was done, just because I needed some extra services, and I just felt like I kind of needed to continue that. I didn't want to just stop it immediately and like not have the same benefits. And so I basically kept the case management for probably a few months, probably like 3 or 4 months afterwards, but not as much as what I normally was before.
Hi, Ken Rosenberg. Thank you so much for participating. I have a quick question for all 5 of you, which is how long was your AOT? Or I think, Dawn, it sounded like you were more in a mental health court, if I understand correctly. But how long were your orders? And more importantly, how long do you think the orders should be for? How long do you think people should be in a court-supervised situation for it to really work?
Yeah, Dawn, would you like to answer that first?
I was in the AOT program for a year, and I feel like a year was long enough. When I was done with the program, my mom wanted them to make me do it for another year, but Judge Burke told my mom that I was doing too good and there was no way that she could court order me to do another year.
Michael, would you like to go next, please?
Yes, absolutely. So I think I was in the program for just over a year as well. I think that every case is, of course, different, but in my view, there was no downside to me being in the program a little bit longer. When you're dealing with something so dramatic as restarting your life following, a psychiatric experience like this, having as much support around you as possible is the most important thing, and really building that foundation to get back to everyday life. And once you have that core support, you can find your own providers outside of the program. You have a better idea of what you need to do moving forward, but you don't want to remove critical support at such a sensitive time when you're not only dealing with the mental and physical effects of all of this, but also your family is trying to help you get back on your feet. And in my case, I went back to school to find new employment. So, a year sounds like a long time in practice, but when it's happening in reality, it's pretty quick experience in my view.
Kim, would you like to go next?
Yes, it's fine. I was under AOT. I voluntarily went into the program, or I guess I had it extended, because I knew that from the immediate beginning, I knew it was going to be valuable. And I would say it was so hard to determine what is right for another person, because I also was in about a year, and it seems like you're hearing that for whatever reason, a year seems to be a good point in time to be in.
And Caleb, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I mean, I was also in it for about, I think it was probably like 13, 14 months, so about a year. I think that was probably a good time. I wanted it to be shorter because obviously you couldn't leave the county while you were on AOT, and I wanted to move because I was still in graduate school, so I wanted to move right closer to the university. But I think like a year was a good enough time for me to mature and grow and develop some coping mechanisms and figure out what I did wrong and develop a relationship with the judge and case manager and whatnot. So I felt like it was at that time.
You said you wanted all 5 of us, right? So for me, I was in AOT with Judge Phil Mayer in Richland County, Ohio for about a year and a half. To be honest, it took about the first 60 days for me to really grow into like trusting my AOT team, because previously for another year and a half, I'd gone through like a very, very intense mental health probation court. and I personally didn't have a really positive experience with that, and I thought it was basically just more of the same. But yeah, Dupree, Joseph Jerger, my guardian ad litem, Judge Mayer, they really won me over in the space of about 60 days. But I think a year and a half was about the sweet point. I was dismissed from AOT 3 days after Christmas, so it was kind of like a Christmas present for me.
Hello, Monica Chavira. I would like to ask you if you could describe AOT in one word, what would it be?
Michael, would you like to field that one first?
Sure. I think the one word I'm going to go with is necessary. I think everybody has some opposition to the idea that they have to be placed in a program like this in the beginning, and it's very natural to feel resistant to it. But at the end of the day, that is what you need to do. And when you're in a crisis situation, it's very easy to push people away who are trying to help you. And so AOT is really a way to make sure that you have the people surrounding you who are not going to give up on your case, who are really looking out for your best interests when you're not able to. And so it is certainly a necessary thing for a lot of people, and clearly a testament to why all of these people are here today to speak about their experiences.
Caleb, would you like to field that question too?
Yeah, I would say probably redemptive. I think that it was an opportunity for me to kind of get back to where I was and earn my stripes again, and feel like I basically, getting back to where I would need to be, and earning the respect of other people and earning the respect of myself.
And Kim, if you could describe AOT in one word or maybe one phrase, what would it be for you?
Sure, liberating. And I say that because there are so many levels to which the AOT program allowed me to either get rid of the bad, bring in some good, and so I would say freeing. Freeing would be another word. Liberating and freeing.
Dawn, if you had to describe an AOT program in one word or phrase, what would it be for you?
Accountability. Because the whole time I was in the program, they really held me accountable for my actions. Judge Burke really instilled in me that I had to show her my progress and to let her know that I was on my meds and not getting in any trouble and not smoking weed and not gambling. And so I'll say accountability because it held me accountable and it made me want to do better so that I could graduate the program.
There's one question that I helped to craft along with TAC, and it's one that I really wanted to squeeze in here. The question is, and this is for all four of you, I'll call on you one after the other. The question is, mentally or emotionally, do you have a comfort movie, comfort TV show, or comfort book genre that helps you out with coping when you are having a bad day or a bad season? So, Caleb, I'll let you answer that first.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a biblical guy, so I think the biggest thing I do is I open up the Bible. I look at Old Testament stories, and I just kind of read through people that have basically been through a lot in the past. I don't know if a lot of you guys know Scripture, but I read through a lot of people that have, throughout history, been through a lot of things, and developed strength to kind of persevere, and it had basically incredible odds, but could beat them by appealing to a higher power. And that gives me a lot of reason to move forward. It gives me a lot of strength. So I look at scriptural things, basically, is what I'm trying to say.
Kim, do you have a comfort movie, show, or book?
Yes, mine would definitely be the Bible. I spend a lot of time, almost to the point where I get obsessed with it, or I'm not handling it well, but I always turn to it for comfort, the Bible.
Michael, do you have a comfort movie, show, or book when you're having a bad day or a bad season?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, when I was going through this process, I was in between hospitalizations, and my uncle recommended The Shawshank Redemption, which is, one of the all-time classic movies. And I think one of the best parallels you can draw is that the main character feels that he's being punished for something he didn't do. And that's also a common theme in mental health treatment, is that you feel that you're suffering the consequences of something that's out of your control. And of course, the underlying theme of the movie is to just keep moving day by day and maintain that hope that you will eventually be able to recover and live the life that you want.
That's awesome. Shawshank Redemption was largely filmed in Mansfield, Ohio, where I'm from, at the old reformatory prison. And fun fact, my dad used to be one of the guards at the old reformatory prison. So yeah. Dawn, do you have a comfort movie, show, or book?
Mine is kind of different from everyone else's. Mine is Lifetime and Law and Order SVU.
Fair enough.
I get into these shows because it teaches me about life, and if I'm having a bad day or something, I like watching Lifetime movies and SVU because I don't know, my mind is just always going, and those two shows keep me focused and just give me something that's interesting to look at.
My name is Stetson McElhaney. I'm the project director at Cascade in Centralia, Washington. Just want to thank you all very much for sharing your stories with us and the level of transparency you're trusting with us. My question comes from, for any participant, after you received your AOT court order and you met with your treatment provider, what level of decision making were you allowed to have involving the types of services you received, the different counselors you got to see? Did you get any say in that, or was it just mainly you're going to work with this agency and they're going to decide for you?
I think we'll start off with Kim. Would you like to answer that first?
And I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, she needs the question repeated, I think.
When you received your AOT court order and you met with your treatment agency, were you allowed to have any say in the types of services you received, the counselors you saw, anything like that?
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to pass on that one.
Okay. Michael, would you like to answer that next, please?
Yes. So I would say that immediately after entering the program, I really did not have too many choices in, who my case manager was and who my psychiatrist was. Not in a bad way. That's just kind of how the system works in New Jersey, where I'm from. And I think this is really important because it's very difficult to find a good healthcare provider that fits your needs. And so you need somebody in the interim in that first part of recovery. And once you have a bit more freedom and time and energy to spend finding the right healthcare provider, that's when you can start to make your own decisions. But after immediately coming out of the hospital, I certainly was not in a state to make those decisions for myself. And that's why AOT is a necessary structure that really supports you in those first couple of weeks or months following such an uproar in your life.
Yeah.
Hey, how's it going? Thank you guys for sharing your stories. My name is Mike DeVore. I'm based out of Washington State. I'm a certified peer support specialist. And I was just curious because a lot of what you guys talked about, you worked with judges, you worked with psychiatrists, you worked with case managers. I was just curious to know if any of you guys worked with peer support specialists. And if so, what was that experience like? Was there anything that they did to support you in your recovery journey? And if not, what would you have felt you could have benefited from having a peer support specialist? Thank you.
Dawn, would you like to take that question first?
Peer support specialist. I've never worked with a peer support specialist in my life. I just feel like if I would have, maybe they could have shown me some empathy or some compassion, and maybe they could have got me to a point where I would have felt more comfortable with AOT, but I've never experienced peer support.
Caleb, did you ever interact with peer support specialists when you were
No,
in
I
AOT?
didn't. And I think I probably would have benefited from one because I was having a lot of psychosis, I mean, probably for about a 9-month period. And I was kind of going in and out. I wasn't taking medication. I feel like, and I talked to somebody who was kind of going through the same thing, and who kind of provide insight of my situation and empathy, kind of like Don was saying. I probably would have been more on track to take the medication and probably would have been out of the program a little earlier. It probably would have been as detrimental to me. Yeah, I never talked to peer support specialists. They mentioned that they would bring somebody, but they never did.
Kim, did you receive peer support when you were in AOT?
I did not. There were several attempts made to offer me the option, and I'm not really into telling people that are not qualified my issue. Is that a horrible thing to say?
Michael, did you get peer support when you were in the program?
No, I did not have a peer support specialist, but as Caleb said, I think that one of the most important things for starting recovery is feeling that you have your peers, because for me in the hospital, I had a sense of community with the other patients, and then immediately following that was removed to my own life, where I felt that I had very little control and nobody who could really relate to my situation. So I certainly see the need and the value of having something like that.
Hi, thank you all for being here. My name is Leandra Montoya. I'm from the Douglas County Mental Health Division, overseeing a care coordination program. My question is, what role or difference did the court or judicial process specifically make in your recovery versus just treatment alone?
Kim, we'll let you field that one first this time. Is her mute on? Oh, okay. Hey, Dawn, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, do you remember the question?
I thought I just answered the question.
Oh.
Okay.
My question was, what difference or role did the court or judicial process make in your recovery versus just treatment alone?
Well, like I was saying, they held me accountable for all my actions, and I feel like that was a strong asset to my recovery. I have a gambling and a weed addiction, and the time that I was in the program, like I was saying, the judge really held me accountable and made me want to do better. So I feel like the accountability part of the program is the best part of the program that helped me in my recovery.
So I have a really good question that we have here for you guys. Which friendship or relationship do you have in your life that helps you the most at staying mentally healthy? I'll hand that question off to Caleb first.
Yeah, I used to live in Chicago for a job. This is probably like, what is it, 2025? This is probably almost 4 years ago. I was up there for a year, and this was when I had my second or third ever, well, really like I would say like my kind of second major hospitalization, and I had to come back home to Kansas City. But when I was up there, there was this guy, his name's Anthony, that I linked up with at the church, and he's just wise dude, about 50 years old. His wife died recently, and so he was kind of going through it. He's paying bills, and he's he always reaches out to me because he needs money sometimes. So I sometimes give him money help, but I feel like in exchange, I ask him for advice. I just call him up and say, "Hey, Tony, I'm really struggling with this, or like, I have a hard time with school, have a hard time with work, have a hard time with medication, and we've talked, probably, semi-weekly, if anything, or weekly, and so I leaned on him, just to kind of give me support and then just to kind of give me the assurance that everything's going to be okay, that there's going to be a brighter day, regardless of how dark the current day is. Because I've had a lot of tough days, and so I lean on that relationship a lot.
Yeah, Michael, which friendship or relationship has been most important for your mental health?
So I'm going to say that my relationship with my immediate family, so my brother, my mother, and my father, they were all there from day one, and just as devastated as I was to go through this experience, and also as inexperienced as I was with going through the world of psychiatric care and recovery. And so they have learned a tremendous amount through this experience. They are very good at holding me accountable for continuing to take care of myself, and have now become advocates as I've gone on to share my story and my book and my experiences with other people to try to help them in similar situations.
Kim, which friendship or relationship has been most important for your mental health?
Well, I think that for me, combined in the same person, the emotional and support. But I have an aunt who's about an hour away. She's very involved. She's my emergency contact on everything. So, and the fact that she was a nurse, so she picks up on a lot of things that maybe would go past the just regular observer. But I don't know what I would do without her. She helps me in everything, from keeping track of my bills to what type of dishwashing liquid to use. She's just really helpful. I love her very much.
I'm going to hand it back over to Judge Stormer. Thank you guys for your time.
Michael, before you go up, there's a question. Oh, he's gone. Well, we will find out the title of Michael's book for the person who wants to know that. There's nothing like these stories to give us the energy to keep going, is it? There's nothing like hearing from people who we've worked hard for stand up and pay a tribute to the program that we care so much about. And for those of you who don't have one, you can see why we love it. And I tell people, as a judge, it's the most fun you can have with your robe on, because you can really get to see a problem solved and a person move forward. Now, to be honest, the people we've heard from, including Bradley, are not everybody in the program. But it's a delight to be able to see this. And the reason I asked Bradley to tell you that story, he was walking on the road in the middle of the night in shorts in February, if I've got the story right, and no shoes. And in Ohio, State Highway Patrol people cannot take you to the hospital under our current law. So we've done a lot in Ohio. We have a ways to go. So what happened to Bradley? He just went home. And he didn't get into this program right then, but he did eventually get into the program, and he, as you can tell, is a delightful speaker.